You may know of Tom Friedman, the New York Times writer. He's a very clever writer and is able to dissemble these issues very, very clearly. And in his book, which he called Hot, Flat and Crowded, describing the state of the planet today, he said that of the scope of these problems, because they are no ordinary problems, any one of them, if not managed properly, could cause sweeping, non-linear, irreversible disruptions that might affect multiple generations. If we're going to solve these problems, we will need new tools, new infrastructure, new ways of thinking, and new ways of collaborating with others. The stuff of great new industries and scientific breakthroughs, and the stuff that propels one nation forward and leaves another behind. Well, the notion that that's just about corporates or countries, we've got to be careful about, because I actually think this is also the sort of thinking required of NGOs and the volunteer movement and us as individuals within those worlds. Because in addition to new industries and new economies, we're going to see a transforming shift in our community behaviours and consciousness, where our level of awareness and understanding of things like climate change, together with an acceptance of our interdependence and connection, will force us to think of new ways of collaborating and thinking, like my soil scientist colleague. And Paul Hawken, who is one of the great American environmentalists, he's been writing for a very long time on the issue of climate change. He wrote about the ecology of commerce back in the early 1980s. A brilliant man himself, and one who's committed his life to environmentalism and the pursuit of an optimistic future for all of us, has written about this change in the consciousness of the community and individuals as blessed unrest. I love that phrase, blessed unrest. And I'll quote from him because I think he speaks so beautifully about what is happening around us. Now, some of you will know this because you'll be seeing it in the context of volunteer movements, but I actually think it's there's something far deeper going on in our communities at the moment that we need to be taking very good notice of. He says that movements, in short, have followers. This movement, however, doesn't fit the standard model. It is dispersed, inchoate, and fiercely independent. It has no manifesto or doctrine, no overriding authority to check with. It is taking shape in schoolrooms, farms, jungles, villages, companies, deserts, fisheries, slums, and yes, even fancy New York hotels, or Singaporean hotels perhaps. One of its distinctive features is that it is tentatively emerging as a global humanitarian movement arising from the bottom up. He says what is compelling about this global movement, which now contains tens of millions of people, is that it is coherent, organic, self-organised congregations involving tens of millions of people dedicated to change. When I'm asked at colleges if I'm pessimistic or optimistic about the future, my answer is always the same. If you look at the science that describes what is happening on Earth today and aren't pessimistic, you don't have the correct data. If you meet the people in this unnamed movement and aren't optimistic, you haven't got a heart. What these people are searching for and they're dealing with is confronting despair, power, and incalculable odds in an attempt to restore some semblance of grace, justice, and beauty to this world. And I love that. This is a movement, incoherent, involving tens of millions, possibly hundreds of millions of people, not organised in the way that we think of organisations, but trying to return a semblance of grace, justice, and beauty. Now, that might seem a little bit over the top, but what he does in the book is then go and examine all of the community networked organisations of volunteers around the world. These are not volunteers that we see in the volunteer movement. These are local community volunteers, as Flavia pointed out, that have always been with us, but that are increasingly connecting. And they're connecting between climate change and sustainability, between economic paradigm shift and soil science. They're connecting in ways that haven't happened before because of the power of communication of the issues and a sense of global interconnectedness.